Good afternoon, Abbotsford residents. I'm Mr. Pelican. I'm running for Commander-in-Chief of Abbotsford. To lower your taxes, I showed you, we're going to go after Archway Community Tash. We're going to go after Rob San Diego, raise that money in that flood victims, and we're going to get that money back to them farmers. And we're going to go after any piece of property like Rob San Diego that owns $5 or $6 million in real estate and is a non-profit status, and he's having his non-profit status waived by Ross Siemens. We're going to go after that. These guys own $40, $50 million in real estate land and buying more, and they're using the manipulation of going to the province and saying, well, we need more for our homeless and our shelters, and they're pushing the non-profit organization, the small ones that care about the community, out of the way so they could get it under one big umbrella. Darren Braun showed me that before his dad realized the pressure was on and had to get him out of the city. Before Darren Braun left and fled, before everything started to hit the fan, the shit, I had plenty of time to have the opportunity to see what his dad was doing for Abbotsford residents. The fraud, his dad's ties to Ed Fast, Mike DeYoung, and how they were going to cover it. Henry Braun came from a foreign country and he fled from a dictatorship. And he came in here to set up a dictatorship. His money that his dad left him, Darren Braun showed me, and his bull-headed stuff you saw with Trudeau when he was no longer the mayor, he wanted that flood money for them gravel pits, that infrastructure, and he manipulated Brad. And we saw all this going through this. But as Abbotsford residents, taxpayers, you were on their hook for their luxuries, their free rides, their incompetence, and the manipulation. He set up a well-established group, I showed you, through the Abbotsford newspaper, Tyler Olson, Rick Rakes, Vicky Hopes, and you could see it when they're not pulling each other down. You could see it at Canada Parade Day. You didn't see Ross with Bruce Banman, you could see it. The left fighting the right, and Abbotsford's residents, taxpayers being victims for this. As bad as it is, we don't even have Corky Neufeld, who's supposed to stand up and fight. He's wailing back, he's leaning back. I don't want to ruffle feathers. And pretty soon you'll see him cross over and be standing beside Ross, and then maybe he'll leave and become an NDP. He knows this has got to be called out. You could see Rianne Gasper the other day mentioned the Mission Bridge, that it needs protection. She's worried that the people going in the Mission Bridge are going to commit suicide, so she wants to make sure that David Eby gets big fences up, so when Henry and Mike Sears and Ed Fast and Mike DeYoung all try to jump, they get caught in the net. And that's what we want to see, people like Rianne call this out, and Bruce Banman. Today, I want to take you back in a little bit of history here. I'm on Riverside Road. This was agriculture land. When Henry's son was economic officer and was hanging with the right people, running his mouth off of how big my dad was, and when he called things just moved, you know. Here, I'm the President of the United States. When he called shots, things were moving. Big old Henry Braun. Councillor Mogale knew that the BC bus terminal here needed to be extended, and he said, let's ask the province to put it, which is just right there to the left of me, let's put it there and make it bigger. Henry stood to benefit, Darren Braun said. Darren said, as an economic officer, development officer, my dad has me lobbying that job over by Lou's Barn Grill. Number one, it gives a lift to my dad's land all there. It brings water and services and everything. And my dad stands to, he's so smart. My dad's so smart, he stands to make millions. Oh, my dad's, his money and his connections. Oh, my dad's so smart. Really smart, using his own son. Then he said, my dad's got Councillor Mogale blocked by all the other ones. Ross Siemens has to vote with Abbotsford first and save this Dave Lowens. To not extend the bus here. Why? Why? Let me explain. If you extend it here, the province has the power to take a piece of the ag land and pull it out of ALR and move it. Henry goes to Pam. In return, he spanks Pam on that little touche of hers, and he says to Pam, We want you under a proposal. A proposal means I'm asking. I need the general public. I need the ag minister, which Pam got that title for a bigger portfolio. And I need approval, and it takes a long time to get a piece of property out of the LR because it's well protected. Under a proposal to get Orion Construction here to start taking a piece of land from I2 to A2. Now let me explain. A piece of farmland is $400 an acre. This is worth $4 million an acre. To rush this hilltop through Abbotsford, over top of Abbotsford, illegal, criminal. Henry knew I knew that. And he asked his friends in the Abbotsford police to start threatening me to shut my mouth, because it meant that the province would have to seize this. And then it meant that the bus terminal that he lobbied next to his was fitting here what Mo said, where there was smoke, there was fire. And he stood to gain with his punk son, but his punk son was telling. But when Josh Gallardi gets up and all these big warehouses get up here, nobody will be strong enough. You know how big their pockets are? Just like Polygon, when Henry snuck in on Cooper's farm with his wife on Sunday to change the schedule and take it off the dockets, making people not come there because it's been removed from your phone, and then put it back on the dockets and blame the lawyer and housekeeping. You go after him because now Polygon walked in and bribed the city officials over its residents, and 3,000 people didn't get the say, and they were pushing him around, and Henry knew enough people that if you went into Ed's office and Mike's office, cut a deal. Henry owned Abbotsford. It was a mob. It was a mob, just like the New York mob did, just like you see in the movies. The Al Cacinos and the Al Capones and the Bonnie and Clydes, a mob. But that mob needed a security system, and it had the best. It thought it had the best, the Abbotsford APD. When you're no longer the RCMP and you become private, you're under the mayor. Henry loaded his brother, Erwin Braun. You saw Mark Warkentine. You saw Sandy Blue. You saw everybody on that board. And Darren Braun was showing me how he could control investigations, insider trading, criminal racketeering, land lifts, lands frauds, and everything. And then we're going to rush this piece of property. Well, what's missing here on Riverside? Let me tell you what's missing. Do you not think that your mayor should say that this is massive infrastructure for Abbotsford and an economic drivers to bring jobs? Ross doesn't stand here and take a picture because it was illegal, so he can't say it's bringing jobs. But you squashed Molson out of here because he was cornering every piece of plan by looking at the official community plan of what he could tell his friends in the development, like Ron Funk on that newspaper, and change the zoning, the Vaquero Ranch, and block the Augustine man, and we'll buy it, just like the movie Beetlejuice. Upstairs was a whole demographic pictures and a model of the town that the mayor was buying the properties. And we're going to set ourselves up as trillionaires owning this little town. And then I believe, in my opinion, that's why he went up the interior to try to get that mayor out of there, which I'm going to go up and I'm going to search in that city, the city's been calling, of how much Diverse owns. It's Diverse Construction, Henry Brown, these partners were all in it. Changing zonings and everything over Abbotsford residents. Why ain't this in Mission? Why ain't this in Chilliwack? Why? Let me explain. The RCMP stand there. You walk into the RCMP like we did into Mission, and things changed, and they changed for the better of Abbotsford. Without Abbotsford having the RCMP and Mission men and women, never mind the uniform, the men and women that understand insider trading, knew Henry's son was in front, supposed to be in front of him, knew the neglect of Ross Siemens dumping his gas station. Some of the officers drove with me and looked at that contaminated stuff his dad and him were hauling into Mission and dumping it. And they knew that Henry would have had to blackjack Ross and say, now listen, you little punk shithole brother, you're going to use your little baby face, Dave Sadu, and we will run you. You sit at your gas station, which was well documented, or I'm going to call the Fisheries Ocean, which I got enough leverage on you now. And your dad's asset and your assets are all gone because you're not allowed to take a gas station and dispose of it there, especially by a creek. It's got to go to the refineries. It's called blackjacking. And in return, Ross, you do one solid haul turn for me. You pass everything, and Abbotsford First will be with you, and Dave Lowens will be with you. We must, as Abbotsford residents now, thanks to the RCMP, not look away. And we must go for the best, and that's the RCMP. But we need to bring something better in We need to now start lobbying to hire prosecutors. And we must send massive criminal sentences onto Mike Sir, who covered Henry's hit and run, his officers that used the task force for manipulation and threats, the developers that can't say, no, I didn't know about this, we're in on it, because other developers are outraged that they were all blocked. And council was always finding favor with everything Henry had. Ron Funka diverse, blocking the Augustine Billionman, and you could see it. Everything Henry lobbied because he thought he was so rich, I'm untouchable, and I had a few manipulating, losing politicians. But what held him in place was this. The Abbotsford sick man that worked in the police department that picked up a prostitute in your car, punched people, went in and punched people. You saw that at the sports center at the Canucks place. Went and left their gun along the street, raced the Dodge Chargers, threatened Abbotsford residents to drop the videos in the lawsuit against Henry in the city because it was going to be on the world stage, and now you get the RCMP for sure. That's what the threat was. It wasn't a drop it against Henry, it was drop it because now the RCMP will see, and that's what we don't want, so drop the videos. That's Keelan Olenoff. Lying about Henry's breaking in, Abbotsford task force threatening Mogel to get him out of the election, and you could see it all unrailing. Dodge Charger being raced, and little kids in Yale Secondary, because they're black, not allowed in the park after hours. White-collar crime. This is what we're going to go after. Make no mistake that I did not differ from one thing, learning from the Premier Bill Vanderzam, MLAs, and the great people that defend our democracy, defend our residents, and help Abbotsford and help Canada every day. To go and single-handedly, every day with my foot down, after the Abbotsford detachment, because it was the elite ring to hold Henry in place. Sickos, unless we charges don't go forward. Sickos allowed Henry to come out in his car. They were sent by dispatch, you can hear dispatch, to go there, and didn't come out because now we have to charge Henry when we show up, and we don't want to do that, so don't show up. Then, not follow up on the calls, which all RCMP officers said once that call was in, Mr. Pelican, whether you like it or not, detachment has to roll up either to the hospital or to your house, and they have to get statements, and they weren't doing that. That means the Chief Mike Sir was and had to be paid very handsomely to cover that all for Henry to finish the term to load Ross Stevens. That's the smartest people in law enforcement. Now we got Colin Watts. Mike Sir fled. We're going to go after Mike. We're going to go after him. We have to send a message that this is not acceptable in police force when you swore an oath. And the problem is, Abbotsford residents, the problem is this. Here's the major problem. How much have they done? How much have they done under this uniform and lied to this general community? If they did it for Henry, Henry's very small and they stood to gain. How much elite stuff have they? How many victims are out there? How many victims are out there? This is what a judge, in front of a judge, he would have to come with one of the harshest sentences in the world to come up on these guys abusing what they did. How many victims are out there? How many people that if these elite people in Abbotsford want to have their ways with your daughter, get their ways and not charged, and your daughter and your family's being blocked because their friends are there? We have to go after it. We know this coward Watts can't run a bag of shit across to the garbage can. He's completely incomparable. He's allowed his officers to smash my phone, smash my camera, make threats under his thing that he's going to get me for publicly disturbing. And you know, look at a big company. We can frame you, and we'll get your passport and your driver's license. We can frame you. Look at how smart I am. And then to learn, I was in White Rock, working for a multi-billionaire. You couldn't go tell the billionaire he's lying because he opened a can of whoop-ass on Watts, and he'd take Watts down like Watts and his whole team and sue him. That there's nothing left. Watts would be, Rob San Diego, you got a homeless shelter for me? We have to get the best, and we're going to get the best, so this never happens. But we're going to go after Josh Gallardi. We're going to go after this. And Abbotsford was frauded because this, in my opinion, and many other mayors I've talked to and politicians now, these assets have to go back into your city. And they have to go back in to lower your taxes. A big facility like this seized and now put up for sale. We won't knock it down, but we'll put it up for sale, and we'll seize all these assets, and we'll put it up for sales, maybe get Richie Bros to auction it off, just like Ron Funkadiverse, and get these assets back into the city to lower your taxes. And we're going to go after that. Because this you saw under a proposal, and this was by the Economic Development Officer himself, Darren Braun, knowing that his dad was doing it, knowing that his dad had city people in the city, rabbis, planning and engineer, rushing his stuff and only his stuff and blocking everything. I'm advising Ross Siemens and I'm advising Henry Braun, if you have a chance, I suggest now, just like Brenda Falk did, you flee. But don't flee in Canada. Get somewhere where you can't be charged, extradited back, and face these charges. I'm here with Abbotsford residents. I'm strong and I'm solid thanks to the RCMP. And I'm going to tell you, when we went to the RCMP, they made no mistakes. That's how this is so locked in. They don't make mistakes. They go after the evidence. They go after what's in front of them. And they could see Ron Funkadiverse changing the zoning. They saw Cooper's Farm, Henry Sneeling. And they saw Darren Braun in front of his dad as economic development officer. They saw Dave Lowens and heard about him taking my signs down. They saw Vicky Hopes blocking me. They saw and heard what the Chamber of Commerce, Greg Toes, did, bribing me unless I lay down and let Ross win, because we need Ross. Look what Ross was going to get us. They heard what Andy Sadu at the Chamber, at UFB did, and got rewarded on his piece of property. That there is what you do. So here's what Darren Braun told me before, meaning his relationship was ended, when he found out that I was Mr. Pelican. My dad's using all Mennonites. Mennonites are all together here in Abbotsford. He's using them all. And the Mennonites will stay together. Ed Fast, and he showed me Rob Funkadiverse, and he showed me. All of them will basically hang together, and he was using them and manipulating them. And this was a Mennonite town, he said, and my dad has total dictatorship over them all. And when my dad says something, it goes. But your dad did this, Darren Braun. Your dad used you with no common sense, his own son, to do his filthy, dirty work and set you up for a lifetime jail sentence under my mayorship, which I will go after because it's a conflict of interest. You knew you were lifting your dad's land and jacking your dad's land. You even admitted it to me, and you said, I got no choice. My dad wants me in front tonight for the meeting in front of Ross because I can argue how to get that bus terminal. Let me tell you what a South Asian said. Where there was smoke, there was fire. The RCMP said when they heard that, they knew something was going on in them